So yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously on the screen you can see a little view of what it would look like if it wasn't doused in snow, and hopefully we will arrange a small kind of non-formal event in a few weeks for you to come onto campus and get a bit of a tour, and ask any kind of individual questions of the different support stands that we would have had here today. So we've got a number of presentations that we're going through. We've got disabled student support, student funding and accommodation for you today, as well as kind of like UCAS next steps, and some updates from the SHU Progress team. So as I said, hopefully this will be still really useful for you, and great that we're still able to do this online versus having to cancel the event fully. So I'm Kendra Argyle, and I'm here with the rest of the SHU Progress team, Ruth and Anne-Marie. Hopefully you might have seen them waving, and they'll be both doing some of the presenting today, so you'll get to see them properly while we're going through. We've also got Anna from the team as well, and she's just supporting with the event being online. Justine, Sophie and Dominic, they're from our different support services who you would see more when you were on course, and yeah, we'll be hearing from them and going through the presentations that you would have had on campus if we would have been able to do that. As I said, hopefully you'll still get lots of really useful information. There will be the opportunity to ask questions at the end of each of the presentations, but obviously if something comes to mind while you're going through it, just pop it in the chat and we will be able to facilitate that being answered. There'll also be time at the end. If at any point we're not sure about the answer to that question or we need to refer to colleagues, we'll do that. We'll make a note and we'll follow that up after the event with you. Hopefully, I think that should be everything that we're going through. So yeah, I just want to hand over to Anne-Marie, who will go through the next stages of the SHU Progress information that we want to share with you that's relevant at this point. There you go.
Yes, hello, I'm Anne-Marie and I'm one of the SHU Progress team. And I'm just going to go through some updates and things to be aware of over the coming months. So we'll just briefly look at the SHU Progress members area, and then the Unite and Sanctuary scholarships that might be relevant to some of you. Then have a look at chances to visit the university throughout March and April. Then we'll have a quick look at the UniBuddy chat function, and then finally student finance. We have moved, good. So just a reminder of the SHU Progress members area. That's our online platform that houses loads of useful information. So there's stuff on UCAS and personal statements. There's some stuff on interviews and selection events as well. And there are some guides to student finance and accommodation, things like that. And some of this information is broken down to be relevant to certain groups. For example, if you're applying to accommodation and you have a disability, or if you're applying to student finance as an independent student, there's specific information on there. So yeah, it's a really good first port of call for support. And we also have the Unite scholarship that's open at the moment, and that is for care leavers or exchange students. And it covers the costs of accommodation and bills for up to 3 years in a Unite property. So to apply for that, it's just an online application form and you need to provide a little bit of evidence about your circumstances. But the SHU Progress team can support you through that. You know, we can have a look at the application, look at your evidence, make sure it's all in order to sort of give you the best chance of being successful in that. So the deadline to get those applications in is the 1st of June, with the decisions being announced at the end of the month on the 29th. So yeah, if you do have any questions about that or want any more information, do get in touch with the SHU Progress team. Oh, I've gone too far. My clicking was really delayed, so I've accidentally pressed it too many times. Thank you, Ruth. Okay, so the Sanctuary Scholarship is also open, and that is for students who have sought asylum in the UK. and that those scholarships cover the cost of tuition fees, and there's also some support with living expenses as well. And there are 3 available, one at undergraduate level, one for postgraduate level, and then one specifically for a human rights-based postgraduate course. I'll just click, oh, there we go. So you can apply if you've made an asylum application in the UK and you're not eligible for student funding. And you also need to have made an application to Sheffield Hallam. That's whether you've already received an offer on that or still awaiting a decision. That application just needs to be put in. So I'd advise you to have a look at the Sanctuary Scholarship webpage on the Sheffield Hallam University website. It's really thorough. There's lots of information on there. Like it goes into quite a lot of depth on eligibility criteria, and there's guidance on making an application and what happens at shortlisting, things like that. And the application form is on that webpage, and you've got till the 16th of April to make that application. But yeah, please do come to the SHU Progress team again if you want any support with that or need more information. So we have course open days coming up in March on the 25th and in April on the 22nd, if you haven't already been to one in February. So they are a really to learn more about your chosen course, speak to the academics that work on that course, and also check out the facilities and study spaces that you might be using. And just a reminder that the SHU Progress team can support with the cost of travel to those events if that would be a barrier to you attending. So yeah, please do get in touch with us if you want some more help with that. Yeah, we just wanted to highlight the UniBuddy chat function as well, which is on the Sheffield Hallam website. And that gives you the chance to chat to a student at Hallam, which could be about anything about student life, living in Sheffield, or you can select to speak to someone from your subject area if you've got specific questions about your course. So I know all the students would be more than happy to help you or answer any of your questions. That's worth checking out. And then just finally, student finance is now open. So I would recommend starting to think about those applications as soon as possible, really. You want to be applying by the 19th of May to sort of guarantee that all that is in place ready for when you start in September. And you don't need to have a confirmed offer to make that application or to, to know 100% where you want to go. That can quite easily be changed a bit further down the line. So yeah, it's just good to get that application in place. And Hallam also does have some student funding workshops coming up throughout March, and they are dedicated to student finance. There'll be somebody there from Student Finance England who can answer any questions. And it'll also get you thinking about managing your money at university as well. So on campus, we have sessions on the 15th and 30th of March, and then there's a virtual one on the 21st as well. So I think, yeah, that's me done for updates from SHU Progress. I will hand over to Ruth, who will talk you through the next steps of your UCAS application.
Ruth, are you there? I think you're on mute. I wonder if I will...
I was there. The mouse wasn't letting me move. It was some battle between me and Anne-Marie, I think, controlling the mouse.
Oh dear.
So I couldn't unmute, couldn't get Anne-Marie to stop controlling the mouse, but I'm here. Let me turn on my video.
That's great.
So yeah, in this section, I'm just going to be talking about UCAS and what the kind of next steps are once you've put in your application. There's kind of been a number of different things that we're going to cover in this section. Firstly, just thinking about that there's still time to make an application if you haven't already. going through some key dates and deadlines, looking at what kind of responses you'll get to universities from your application, and you might have some course-specific conditions to your offer, then thinking about what you need to do to respond to your offer, and then at the end, just thinking about some other options that might be relevant to you, such as UCAS Extra and using clearing or adjustment. So yeah, from looking at the data of our SHU Progress members, we know quite a lot of you have already made your applications through UCAS, but we just wanted to remind you that it's not too late to apply to start in September 23. We're still accepting applications for most of our courses, and we'd really encourage you to put in your application. While this session isn't really going to be focusing on the application side of things, please contact us after this evening via phone or email if you want help with the application process. We've also got quite a lot of useful resources on the members area, as Anne-Marie said. So hopefully this session will still be useful to you if you've not yet made your application, because it's thinking about the next steps, but please get in touch if you want any extra help. So this is just going over the key kind of dates and deadlines when it comes to your UCAS application. So the 25th of January is what UCAS calls equal consideration deadline, and they do encourage students to apply before this date. And equal consideration, what that means is that everyone that applies from the start of when UCAS opens until the 25th of January is kind of given equal consideration for their applications. If you apply after that, it might be that the course is full, or you can't be considered for that course this year. But as I said, you can still apply for university after this date. So the deadlines that universities have to get back to you by depends on when you've applied. So if you've applied by the 25th of January, you'll hear back from all of your choices by the 18th of May. If you apply after the 25th of January, and I think you have up till the 30th of June to apply for the kind of standard approach, you'll hear back from universities by the 12th of July. So don't worry if you haven't heard back from your universities yet, there's still plenty of time to hear back from them. And then depending on when you hear back from your universities, you've got different deadlines on when you need to make your decision. So if you hear back from all your universities by the 18th of May, you need to reply to them with your decisions by the 8th of June. And if you receive all your decisions by 12th of July, you must reply by the 17th of July. So we just wanted to point out, as we go along the cycle, the time you get to decide does get a bit shorter, so just bear that in mind. If you're not sure about your specific deadline, if you go onto your UCAS track, it'll tell you when you need to reply by, sorry. And here's just some other dates that are coming up over the summer. It does feel quite far away now, we're sitting in the snow, but 5th of July, clearing opens. I'll talk about that a bit later in the session, but clearing gives you the opportunity to apply for a course that still has spaces left if you don't have an offer in July. Sheffield Hallam might open clearing before this, so if you're in that position and want to consider clearing, it's worth getting in touch with us in June, and we can see what specifically date will open at Sheffield Hallam or do some initial inquiries with you. I've put the results day down. Some of you that are holding conditional offers, you might be waiting for your A-level or BTEC or GCSE results for your offer to become unconditional. And then I've also put down with Monday, the 18th of September, hopefully all things going well, we'll be welcoming you as Sheffield Hallam students to the university then, and then your teaching on your course starts the week after. So when you've made your application to universities via UCAS, you'll get 4 different responses for them, depending on what universities decide. So you might get an unconditional offer, and this means that you've been given your place at university based on the grades that you've already got. So they know what grades you've got, they're happy to accept you based on that, and they've given you a place. A conditional offer means that they've offered you a place at the university, but it might be dependent on certain conditions. That might be getting a certain number of grades, or a certain number of UCAS points. It might be getting a suitable reference or doing some specific paperwork. For some courses, you'll have to do a selection event. That might be called an interview or a portfolio review if you're doing a more creative course. And that's just something, an extra step that you need to do for the university to look at your suitability for the course before giving you an offer. And then the last response you might get is unsuccessful. And while we hope that's not the case, that just means that the university hasn't offered you a place on the course. That might be because you don't meet the entry requirements, or alternatively, it might be that your course was an interview course and just some other applicants did slightly better in the interview, and there was a limited number of places. Depending on your course, as I said, there might be kind of specific conditions that aren't just about your grades or your UCAS points. If you're studying any of these courses, you'll have to do a disclosure and barring service check, which is called a DBS check. It's a criminal records check. If you're studying a course which is regulated by a professional body, you might need to fill in the declaration form, or you may need to have an occupational health screening just so the university knows how to best support you with any health conditions and during your course. While we can't give you kind of specific information right now about what you need to do for your course, you should check all your kind of offer communication, or if you go to your course page on the online prospectus, it'll detail exactly what you need to do. And things like you don't need to organise the DBS check yourself, the university will contact you and let you know what you need to do about that. So keep an eye out of that for your emails. So once you've got all your offers back, you need to apply to all of those offers that are unconditional, conditional, and you do that through using UCAS Track. We use some slightly strange language for when we're talking about replying to offers. So we call your first choice, the university you want to go to most, that'll be something that you say is your firm choice. And your second choice university, we call your insurance choice. So if you've been given an unconditional offer, and that's where you really want to go, and you put that as your firm choice, that's it, you're done, you can decline any of your other offers. However, if your firm choice is a conditional offer, you also need to choose an insurance choice. And that just means in case you don't meet the requirements of your firm choice, it's like a backup choice, but it still you want to choose somewhere that you'd be happy to go. The thing with your insurance choice, you just need to make sure that the entry requirements are lower than your firm choice, because it doesn't make sense to have them the same, or the insurance choice higher than the firm. So once you've made that decision, you need to decline any other offers that you've got, and just bear in mind those deadlines I spoke about at the beginning about when you need to do that by. UCAS Extra, that's something that's open now. So if you've not received any offers from the applications you've made, or you've declined all the offers you've received, you might be able to apply for another course through UCAS Extra now. UCAS will notify you specifically if you have this extra status, and they've got quite a lot of information on their website about what to do with that. The other thing, just thinking ahead until the summer, is talking about clearing and adjustment. And we will talk about this more in the summer event. But clearing is something you can use if your results haven't gone quite to plan. So you can contact universities directly to see if they have any spaces on alternative courses. Alternatively, if you've done a lot better than you expected, you might want to think about looking for an alternative course. And you can use adjustment for that. And that allows you to reconsider where you want to go without using your kind of firm choice. And that's something that you do through UCAS Track. So there's just a bit of a timeline that I'll just go over, and you might all be at different stages of this. Making your application, then you receive your choices back, you make your decisions. If your firm choice is an unconditional, you can go straight down here, and the next step will be starting your first year of higher education. If your offers are conditional, you might be waiting for results day. Depending on your results, if you meet the conditions of your offer, you go here to starting first year of higher education. If things don't go as well or go better than expected, there are other things you can do, such as going through clearing, using adjustment, or maybe deferring entry until the next year. So there's lots of different options depending on your situation. And then I've just put in, we'll send these slides around afterwards. I'm just putting in this link to UCAS because it's got quite a lot of different information about what to do after you apply. Does anyone have any questions? I'm just looking at the question in the chat.
Sorry, my mouse seemed to not want to play ball either just then. We've answered a few questions as they've popped up, and Anne-Marie's just replying to one about a change course request. So I think we'll give it a half a second, but I think that's probably everyone.
Yeah, I would say just in terms of, I know admissions at the moment, when you're emailing them, that they are very busy on their emails. So if you don't hear back from them, you can always get in touch with us and we can try and get in contact with them over the phone. because they have said to us that their inboxes are just very busy at the moment. So don't worry if you don't hear back from them straight away. Either wait a bit longer or get in touch with us and we can help. If there's no other questions, we can move on to Justine and Disabled Student Support. Let's give it a couple more seconds. Okay, Justine, I've just given you control of the, oh, we've got a question.
I think we'll need to pick up this separately. That's probably not in relation to your direct presentation. So we can move on to Justine, please.
Thank you. So my name's Justine and I work in disabled student support, and part of my role is to support students with disabilities transition into university in general, but I am employed by Sheffield Hallam as well. Just have to be patient with the clicking. So I will just run through a little bit about disclosing your disability in higher education, the support you can get at Sheffield Hallam, what a learning contract is, what suitable disability evidence is, funded support, and a little bit about disabled student allowances, and then what you sort of need to be doing through the summer, and also what you can look out for that we put on through the summer. So hopefully most of you have applied through your UCAS, and we would have encouraged you, or hopefully you have disclosed your disability sorry, through your UCAS application. If you've not done that, so if you didn't tick the box when you applied through UCAS, don't worry, just get in touch with Disabled Student Support at Sheffield Hallam, and we can tell you and guide you what to do at the next stage. Obviously, if you don't tell us that you've got a disability, we won't know. So we don't get to find out from any college or school that you've been at before. The first time we will find out is if you let us know. And it obviously not disclosing will mean that your support is not put in place ready for September. So the types of disability we support are linked to the Equality Act. So what that says is anyone is classed as, oh, sorry, I'm whizzing through. I don't know what's happening. That's it, it's gone back. So what the Equality Act says is that anyone with a disability has a diagnosis or is working towards a diagnosis, that it has or will last longer than 12 months, and that it has an impact onto your day-to-day living. And obviously for university, that means studying. So there's a list there of the types of disabilities that we support. So anyone with a physical, visual or hearing impairment, any specific learning difficulties, which is the umbrella term for dyslexia, dyspraxia, and ADHD to some extent, any long-term medical conditions, mental health conditions, that includes anxiety and depression, and anyone who's on the autistic spectrum. And they're the sort of main disabilities that we support, but anyone that fits with those three criteria that I said can be supported through Sheffield Hallam. So I think one of the main things that's different from schools and colleges once you come to university about disabled student support is the change of language. So it might be that you've known it as additional learning support or a statement of needs, and we switched that to disabled student support. And for some students that can be quite a sort of tricky label to take on, but it's it's just what we call it. It's to fit in with the Equality Act, and it's linked to the disabled student allowances, which I'll talk about later. So just sort of get used to that you will be classed as a disabled student. And the support is put in place by the Disabled Student Support Team at Sheffield Hallam. So it's not an SEN team or an additional support team. It is a Disabled Student Support Team. So again, contact us as early as you can so that we can get that support in place ready for September. So what we do at Sheffield Hallam in Disabled Student Support is we'll ask you to register and to provide some evidence of your disability, and what that will mean is that you'll get a learning contract. Now, a learning contract is a document that is individual to yourself, and a disability advisor will look at your disability, look at the impacts of the disability on yourself, look at the course that you're on, and put together reasonable adjustments so that you're studying at an equal level to non-disabled students, so that there aren't those barriers in place. It's written for your individual support needs, and it can be revised and reviewed at any time throughout your course. So if anything changes, if anything's not working, then please get back in touch with us so that we can update your learning contract. I don't know why that keeps happening, but so the types of reasonable adjustments are in the following areas: so learning and teaching. So that might be specifically during your lectures and seminars. Not asked to answer out loud is one of the really common recommendations, and that's one example. Assessments and exams, so extra time in exams, a laptop in exams, a smaller exam room or one-to-one, reader scribe for exams is another adjustment that's really common. Learning centres and libraries, so you might get extended library loans, you can get support within the libraries and support on your placement. And these can all be written into the document that we call a learning contract. The learning contract is your document. It will be shared with your tutors and lecturers so that they know that they can support you in that way. It will be shared with the exams team and the library staff, but no one else needs to know about that document. We don't share it generally, and it's not put on any sort of document when you leave university. It's purely just for university. So as I've explained, to get that learning contract, you'll need to register with Disabled Student Support, and we'll need to see evidence of your disability. So anyone that's got a specific learning difficulty, so dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, then we'll need a full diagnostic assessment report. It needs to be written by an educational psychologist, and it needs to have got the approved tests. So if you've had an access arrangement at college, that's probably not going to be suitable, and you will need that full psychological support report. If you haven't got one, get in touch with the Disabled Student Support Team, and once you're on your course and enrolled, we might be able to put you forward for an assessment. But if you have got one, start getting that together through the summer, making sure that you've got all the bits, because we will need to see it for your learning contract. For any other condition, we'll need something from a doctor, consultant, psychiatrist, and it needs to have got your diagnosis, the impacts, and how long it's likely to happen on. For anyone with autism or with an autism diagnosis, it's often enough to send your EHCP in, so your educational healthcare plan, and if that's written in a really good way, then we can accept that for an autism diagnosis. So send it in, we can tell you if you need more or less. But throughout the summer, start getting that evidence together so that we can have a look at it and get your learning contract in place. So as well as the institutional support, so those reasonable adjustments that can be put in place to support you, there is also funded support. So anything that might have a cost that can support you for teaching and learning, that will be put in place, can be put in place as well. So specific software is one example, a voice recorder to take in lectures is another example, and one-to-one support workers such as specialist mentor or a study skills tutor or a BSL interpreter for a deaf student, those sorts of things. For the majority of students, that will be through disabled student allowances. So if you're home feed, full-time undergraduate, then you would apply for disabled student allowances. For anyone else, so for example, if you're planning on doing a degree apprenticeship, contact the disability team at Sheffield Hallam and we can look into getting you that support. We just have to use another pot of money for that, but the support is the same. You'll just do it through a disability advisor rather than through disabled student allowances. I'll just explain disabled student allowances in a little bit more detail. So they're non-means tested and they're given as a grant, not a loan, so you don't pay it back. And they can cover specialist equipment and software, non-medical helpers, as I've explained for, such as your mentors and study skills tutor, a general allowance that includes sort of printering, coloured paper, things like that, and a travel allowance. So for specific students in certain circumstances, DSA will pay for a taxi from your home address to university or from your home address to placement if you're on placement. So if you're full-time undergraduate, you can apply for disabled student allowances through your through finance. When you're applying for your core finance, it will ask you if you want to apply for DSA, or it'll be in your to-do list that you can apply for it. You fill in a short form, they'll need to see a copy of your evidence, and then they'll send you a letter out to tell you to book a study needs assessment. The study needs assessment is just a chat with a needs assessor, and they will recommend and talk to you about different recommendations that you can get that can help your learning whilst you're at university. They'll write up the report, send it back to your funding authority, and then you'll get an entitlement letter telling you how to arrange your equipment, your non-medical help support, taxi support, if that's what's been recommended. So I would definitely say apply for your DSA as soon as you can. The second thing I would say for DSA and for support at Sheffield Hallam is send us a copy of your evidence. Please don't send us the original, because we can't guarantee that we'll be able to get it back to you. You know, for some people that might have had a cost, you might have had to pay a GP to get that information. So please don't send us the original copy. If you're not sure what to get from your GP, if you go on Sheffield Hallam Disabled Student Support, there's a pro forma on there for your medical evidence, so you can take that into a doctor or your consultant and ask them to fill that in, and that has all the information on that we need, and that will be suitable for DSA as well. So yeah, just start getting your evidence together through the summer. So there's just a bit of a breakdown now of kind of what you need to do. I know I understand that it is quite a confusing process. It can take a bit of sort of breaking down, but these are sort of the list of the things that you can do through the summer. Disclose your disability, collect your evidence together, apply for your disabled student allowance through your funding authority if you're eligible, register with disabled student support, and get your medical evidence sent off to disabled student allowances and Sheffield Hallam. And a disability advisor will either send you emails or try and have a telephone chat with you through the summer, so look out for that. I've put also attend relevant events. So disabled student support put on events through the summer, and anyone that's disclosed will get emailed those events, so look out for those emails, pop along. We have Last year and the year before, we've done online study ready events, which have been really popular and have been really successful, so look out for those. We're also hoping this year to do some sort of study ready event on campus. Again, we'll email out with more information once we've got that set up and ready to go. For anyone with autism, we'll hold what we call an AS Information Day, and I can tell you that this year that is going to be held on Thursday, the 20th of July. And again, we'll email out anyone that's disclosed autism for that event. So just sort of keep your eye out for that, and we'll be in touch through the summer. So that's a real quick run through of what disabled student support can offer. If you've got any questions, ask now, but also please either email me or email disabled student support, and we can answer any questions for you.
Thank you so much, Justine. We have got a couple of questions, and I just want to make sure that they are covered off.
Yeah.
So one question was, does SHU offer any funding support to obtain a dyslexia screening?
We don't offer funded support, but once you're a student, so once you're enrolled, if you get in touch with us, we can probably cover the cost of that. So yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, go
I don't
on.
want to promise it because obviously funds change, but we are being told that we should be able to cover the cost once you're enrolled.
Great, thank you for that. And will a hospital letter be suitable for a diagnosis of dyspraxia, or would this need to be reassessed?
It depends what details in the letter. So what I would suggest is send it into Disabled Student Support and ask one of our disability advisors to sort of have a read through it and have a look. And providing it's got the correct information, then yes. But yeah, just send it in and we can always have a look at it and make that decision.
Great, thank you for sharing that information. And then there is one, I think we're in the process of replying, and I had pulled up one bit of your presentation which I think does answer it, but just to make sure that, as I said, we're covering things off. I'm in the process of being diagnosed with lupus but don't have an official diagnosis, as it can take years. Will I still be able to apply, or do I have to wait for an official diagnosis?
Yeah, if you can get your GP to, or your consultant to say working towards a diagnosis and that it has impacts. So it's having those two things. So you haven't got the full diagnosis, but you're working towards that diagnosis, but this is how it impacts your studies. So things like it might be that your medication makes you fatigued and therefore morning lectures might be difficult for you to attend and things like that. So it might be worth downloading a pro forma off our website. I'll pop that in the Q&A, the link for the pro forma, and then you can print that off, and that's got all the bits in that will make sure you've got the right information, but working towards is acceptable.
Would the DSA be able to help costs with dietary requirements at all?
No, it's just study, so anything in teaching and learning, not separate, not including that would have to go through your PIP or something like that rather than DSA.
Great, thank you. And then there was a question about what's the email for disabled student support, but I also want to say you could just email SHU Progress and we can kind of...
Yeah, you can pass it on, but I will put it in the Q&A chat window as well. Great,
thank you. We'll also follow up the event with links to our members area where we'll host the recording of this, any presentations and any kind of additional information like the email address. We can share that in the members area and the follow-up email as well.
Yeah, great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Justine. That was really helpful. And then I think we're just moving on to Sophie.
Hi, hello. So my name's Sophie and I'm part of the student funding team. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of the undergraduate fees and funding available. So the information on this presentation is correct as of February. So it should be correct for students starting in September this year. But if you are thinking of starting September the following academic year, that information is subject to change, but you can always check this information on the Student Funding England website as well. So in general, with a student loan, you'll be applying for two parts of the loan, the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan. So for the tuition fee loan, that covers the cost of your course, and that's paid directly to the university. So that's £9,250 per year of study. It is a little bit less during a placement year at £1,850. It's not means tested, so it's not based on your household income. If you do decide for whatever reason that you don't want to take out a tuition fee loan, then you'll be sent an invoice for your fees after you enroll. So the second loan is the maintenance loan. This is to support you with the cost of living, accommodation, bills, and that sort of thing. So this is paid directly to the student over 3 instalments over the academic year. Now, this loan is based on household income, and I've got a little table in the next slide that'll give you a rough idea based on household income, what maintenance loan you can expect to receive. When it means household income, the student's income is not taken into consideration, so they'll just class that income as 0, even if you've already got a part-time job or something at the moment. And household, it's wherever you're choosing to live at the moment. So if that's with one parent and their partner, it's those two incomes combined. So it's not sort of across all parents if one parent's living in an alternative location. So the minimum maintenance loan you can receive is £4,651, and the maximum is £9,978, and that's based on living away from home. So again, with the placement year, the amount you receive will be less during placement, along with the tuition fees are less, and then it'll also be less in your final year as well. It also will differ if you do decide to live at home or away from home. You get slightly more for living away from home. If you decide that you don't want to be means tested, so you don't want the household income taken into consideration, you will just get the minimum loan, which is £4,651. So here is the table. So I'll just leave this up here for a second or two, just for you to have a look through. Obviously, everyone's circumstances is a little bit different. So if you wanted to have a look through roughly what the household income is for yourselves, and then if a student's thinking of living away from home or living at home, those are the amounts you can sort of estimate you might receive. And if you wanted to check further, there is a loan calculator on the gov.uk website as well, where you can put in the specific income from the household, and you'll get a more accurate number. So with the loans, they are loans, so you will have to pay them back. So currently, the loans, you'll only start paying them back once you earn sort of over £25,000, and that'll be 9% of your income over £25,000. It'll get taken from your wages like tax and national insurance, so you don't have to think about how to give that money back to Student Finance England. It'll all be sorted when you start work. There is interest charged from the loan from the first day the payment is made to you. And if you've not paid all the loan back after 30 years, it'll be cancelled. They are looking to change that. So I think they are looking to extend that. So that might be different for students starting September next year rather than the coming September. But like I say, you can always check the terms and conditions on the gov.uk Student Finance England website to check about the interest rates and any changes that they might have. So this is also a handy table just to have a think about what kind of repayments you might have to make once you start earning. And you only start paying it back the April after you graduate as well. So it's not as soon as you graduate, you start paying your loan back. It's the April after that. Depending on a student's circumstances, there might be other funding available from Student Finance England. So you might be eligible for a parent learning allowance, maybe depending on the age of your child, you could be eligible for the childcare grant. And if you have an adult that is financially dependent on you, you might be eligible also for the adult dependence grant. And these are grants and they're not loans, so you don't need to repay this back at all. So if you are eligible for any of these, you won't have to pay any of that back. In terms of funding from the university, we have a number of scholarships and bursaries. The Student Success Scholarship is our main scholarship that we offer. So the minimum you could receive is £600 with a maximum around £2,000. It's available to most undergraduate students as long as they have a household income of £62,343 or less. If it is just that you fall into the category that you are in a household with that income or less, then you'll probably receive sort of a smaller award, maybe around the £600 mark. Whereas students who fall into more of the priority groups are likely to receive more funding from the scholarship. So sort of estranged students, care leavers, students with a disability, even final year students and students on a high cost course as well. And you will only be able to apply for it after you've enrolled. And the amount, if you are a part-time student, will also be prorated as well. Following on from the Student Success Scholarship, we do have a specific care leavers package. So you get the maximum £2,000 from the Student Success Scholarship and then an additional £1,500 from a bursary. Again, that's after you've enrolled, but it is available every year of study. And again, it will be prorated for part-time students. We have an additional bursary while you're on placement, so that's obviously available during the placement year. The eligibility criteria for the placement bursary is very similar to the Student Success Scholarship, and it's also dependent on the amount of money you've received from the Student Success Scholarship in a previous year, but we'll contact all eligible students about how to apply for that once you've started your placement. We also have a performance athlete support program as well. So talented student athletes can get a support package worth up to £3,000 to sort of help between that uni life balance and sort of sports, making sure that you can fit everything in and providing financial support with that. In terms of the applications, they open at the end of January and close in August, just in preparation for the upcoming academic year. And again, you can reapply for that every year. Depending on the course that you're studying, you might also be eligible for additional funding. So if you're doing a teaching course, you might be eligible for different teacher training bursaries. If you're doing an NHS course, so nursing, midwifery, you might then also be eligible to apply for the NHS Learning Support Fund. And if you're doing a social work course, you might be able to apply for the social work bursary as well. So there are different courses that do attract additional funding, and that's on top of Student Finance England funding as well. So here is how we are supporting students with the cost of living at the moment. So we are very aware of the effects of cost of living it are having on students. So we've put some different measures in place to try and support students the best we can. So in terms of food, we have frozen the prices. In our catering outlets, we provide a range of deals: £2 lunch boxes, free porridge with a hot drink. And on certain Wednesdays, we have an event called £1 Wednesdays, where all items are £1 each that you can buy. We also provide stations as well. So if you want to bring in your own food, there's microwaves there to heat it up if you need hot water and things like that. And if you are struggling, we do provide emergency food vouchers as well. In terms of learning, we suspended library fines. You can have access to the top 100 ebooks for free. And also a big one, especially from our service, is Black Bullion. So that's a free online financial platform specifically created for students to support them with all sorts of financial sort of ways of thinking about sort of like if you wanted to learn about budgeting, if you want to learn about taxes in the future, if you wanted to learn how pensions work, anything financial that you've got a bit of a question around, Black Bullion have some pathways, some lessons on there, videos that you just go through, and they run a lot of competitions as well. In terms of travel, you can apply for a Zoom Beyond card, so you can travel around South Yorkshire for 80p, and in general a single bus fare for students is £1.20 with your university ID card as well. We do obviously have our wellbeing team there to support students. If your financial situation is affecting your mental health, we would recommend contacting them for that additional support. And the Team Hallam membership fees have been frozen as well. So we are providing a lot of support for students to support them with the cost of living. So our top tips really are apply as soon as possible. So the applications are open, should be open now. So we would say apply as soon as possible. Please ensure that you have applied before the end of May to make sure that your first payment is available to you when you start. Even if you don't decide to come to Sheffield Hallam, it is still a good idea to apply for your funding and just change the university at the end. It's much better than waiting until everything's confirmed and then applying, because your funding might not be in place by the time you start at whichever university you're going to. So do apply, and if you need to make changes, that's fine, but apply. We would recommend planning, and that'll sort of mix in with the budget as well. But in terms of your maintenance loan, it only really gets released to you once you've been enrolled, and that can take 5 working days after you've enrolled for you to receive it. And it might not mean that you enroll on the first day you're at university either. So you do need to just prepare for those first few weeks of university life, just that you have some money available to you to sort of use during that time. So budget, we really want students to budget, because the maintenance loan that you receive might not cover everything that you need. So having an idea of your budget, your income, your expenditure, so you can think about, do you need part-time job or something like that? So it's always a good idea to sort of set a budget. If you do need any support with creating a budget, we do offer budgeting appointments where we can support students to create budgets, see what they can do to make the most out of their income and things like that. So we do offer support with that as well. And just finally, just think about all the little things that you might also have to pay for. So do you need to pay for the TV license, your phone contract, insurance? You can check these things with your accommodation provider as well if some of these things are already covered, but it is a good idea just to make sure that you are aware of all the little costs that might start adding up. Going on to the next one. There we go. I'll just put some useful links on there. So you'll need the top link to apply for student finance funding. We've got some information underneath. That's our university money pages, just give some information as well from the university regarding money. Black Bullion would recommend everyone signing up and creating that account just so they have that ready, just so you can start looking already at sort of improving your financial capabilities. If you are doing a teaching related course, that's the website for looking at the bursaries available for getting to teaching. And again, if you're an NHS student, you can go on the NHS website to find more information about the Learning Support Fund. Any questions?
Thank you for that, Sophie. That was really helpful. We've had a few questions come through, and we've been able to answer a few of them, but just want to call up a couple. So there was a question about, are there any interest-free loans for Muslim students, as I can't take an interest loan? Do you have any further information about that?
Not specifically. I do know that the loans from Student Finance England do have interest with them. So there's nothing we would suggest from the university. It would need to be something that you need to look into yourself if that's sort of your circumstance. Obviously you'd know which ones were better for you and your sort of belief system. So it would be that you'd probably need to have a look into it yourself on that one.
Yeah, we are able to kind of follow that up as well, and just see if there's anything that we can do to support you in that way. I know there's some information on the House of Commons library about Sharia compliant alternative student finance. I don't think it's an easier answer that we can follow up right now. I think it would take us both kind of having a look into that together, but we're happy to do that with SHU Progress. So just get in touch and we can talk that through with you. Thanks for that, Sophie. So just moving on. I live alone and rent a property locally. Would I be classed as living away from home, i.e. not living with parents, etc.?
Yeah, so you might be eligible for independent status. So if you live away from home and you can prove that you've been self-sufficient for the last 3 years, then you might be able to get self-sufficient status. But if not, you probably will be classed as away from home. Yeah.
Thank you. Does the household income based on earned income, so work wages, or do you include your benefits?
I think it is worked income, but you're probably best off double checking with Student Finance England just to be certain. So I believe it is worked income, but it's always best to just double check in your own certain circumstances as well.
Yeah, again, once you've checked that out with Student Finance England, if you're still having any problems, come back to us with SHU Progress and we can always kind of help that. We've got contacts within Student Finance England, so we can help you find that answer if you can't find it yourself. Does the household income base... Oh, sorry, I've just read that one. Can you explain to me how the loan will be for a refugee which is at the expense of a housing organisation? I think, again, that will probably be one that we need to follow up. But
yeah, it'd be a bit tricky for me to try and answer that one here and now. Yeah, it seems like it's something we'd have to look into a bit further. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry we weren't able to answer all of those questions directly now, but as I said, we will follow this up after with any questions. And again, some of these circumstances are quite unique to individuals' cases, so it isn't just a one size fits all kind of answer. So although we're not able to answer it right now, we can investigate that with you after. Okay, thanks, Sophie.
Thank you.
So I think we're over to Ruth now, just for a little bit on commuting. Is that correct?
Yeah, so in this last section, Dom's going to be taking the main part of it, talking about accommodation offered at the university. But just as kind of a bit of an intro, I'd kind of talk you through the things you think about when you're making a decision about whether you want to live in student accommodation or commute from where you currently live. And I guess there's no right or wrong answers to that, really. You need to think about what's right for you. So there's different things to think about. Commuting, there's obviously the cost of whether that's public transport or petrol, the time you spend commuting. And it's really important to just think about kind of what method is going to work best for you and what's the most practical. If you're doing an art subject where you have to carry lots of resources, is the bus going to be that practical? And it's also, especially with public transport, just thinking about the timetabling and how frequent the buses are. And if you have a 9 o'clock lecture, what time would you have to leave home? But then there's also other things to think about if you're living in student accommodation. That's how much you want to pay for your accommodation, what kind of facilities do you want, whether that's car parking or an ensuite room, where you want to live, and how far away you want to live from campus. And then you've also got the option of living in student halls or private accommodation. Just briefly talking about commuting. So Sheffield Hallam's actually really well-positioned university for coming to commuting. And I think I saw a statistic that roughly about 40 to 50% of our students do commute. So it's that, you know, don't feel like you're going to be the only one on your course commuting if that's the option that's going to work best for you, because that's definitely not the case. So the main Sheffield train station and the bus and coach stations are just a 5-minute walk from city campus. That's really convenient. If you're studying at collegiate campus, which is more our healthcare courses and sports courses, it's a 20-minute walk from the city centre, or there's regular buses that go up Ecclesall Road. Commuter students, we also have a Facebook group for you, so you can maybe meet people that are travelling in the same direction as you, and they also run some little events. There's different student travel discounts. I haven't put on kind of specific prices because they do change from time to time, so I don't know what they'll be in September, but most buses in Sheffield are run by the company's First or Stagecoach. They often offer student tickets by showing your student card, and also kind of weekly or monthly passes, depending on what's going to work best for you. Travel Master do an 18 to 22 discount card, and that can include buses and trams. If you're thinking about driving, there's discounted parking in the city centre. You get a little chip that you need to scan at some of the reception desks to get that discounted offer. There's also the 16 to 25 rail card, which will give you discounts on train travel. It's worth pointing out that if you're a mature student, you can still get this rail card even if you're over 25. There's certain conditions, such as being on a full-time course and a kind of certain number of hours, but it's something that's worth looking into. So that's given you a brief overview of kind of the commuting side of things, and now I'll pass over to Dom to talk more about accommodation. Oh, there we go.
Brilliant, thanks Ruth. So my name's Dom, I work for the accommodation services team here at Sheffield Hallam, and I'm going to run you through all the basics of accommodation really. So a little bit about what we offer, what we advise on, a little bit about how to apply, a little bit about tenancy agreements and things like that, and a little bit about what we have to offer with them in terms of halls of residence themselves as well.
Dom, you're on mute.
So I'll talk about two main different types of accommodation, which are halls of residence and then also private sector. The main sort of types of accommodation that we deal with here at Hallam are halls of residence, which are really good for first years, but we also welcome back returning students there too. So it's definitely not the case of only for first years, you can't apply at any other time of your university journey. And it's not necessarily for just people of a certain age. We welcome back mature students as well. So it's definitely something that you would want to consider if you're thinking about living away from home whilst you're studying with us. So a little bit about our halls of residence. They're all very much city centre located, so you don't have to worry about ever getting a bus or a tram or a train between campuses or to commute into university if you are living in halls. As it says here, it's little as 2 minutes and never more than 30 minutes. To be honest with you, I think that 30 minutes is a little bit of a conservative estimate. I think for the vast majority, you're looking at 20, 25 minutes, depending on which campus you're going to be studying at, which is really handy if you're new to the city and you're getting to know a new area. It's nice to be able to know that where you're living, you're situated in somewhere that's walkable distance to your halls of residence. So the top 5 reasons to live in halls, this is just something that we've put together that explains a little bit about why halls of residence would be a good option for you if you're choosing to move away and live in Sheffield while you're studying. The heart of university life, this is a big one, really. As I've just mentioned, all of our accommodation is very much city centre based and really in the heart of Sheffield. So if you're new to the city, you're getting, used to a new place, maybe meeting new people, a new university course. It's really nice to be able to be in that mix with other people who are in the same boat as yourself. So living in the heart of university life is really an important point when you think about living in the halls of residence. I'll touch on some financial stuff a little bit later on, but point number 2, no nasty surprises, is one to bear in mind, which just means that our rent includes all bills. So the rent that you see on your tenancy agreement is all you need to worry about when you come to pay for it. So that includes all of your utilities, so water, electric, gas. It includes your internet. And it also includes some insurance cover, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So essentially everything's covered in that rent. The only thing that's not is a TV license if you wanted to watch TV. But apart from that, the rent is inclusive of all bills, which can be a really handy way to budget should you need to. We guarantee all first-year students a place to live. So if you apply through our service, we guarantee you somewhere to live, regardless of when you apply. It won't be a problem. We do say if you've got a specific hall in mind or a specific place in mind, or you want to live with friends or have other sort of requests, we'd say apply as soon as possible. But as standard, we guarantee you somewhere to live when you come and apply through our service. Number 4, making friends for life. This is kind of what I touched on with the heart of university life thing, but you'll find in halls of residence, you're in a position where you're with lots of new people who are all in the same position as you, which can be a really handy way of meeting lots of new people, making friends, and finding a bit of a friendship group and a support network in Sheffield while you're studying. And it's something we always say for our students who come and speak to us, that really great way to make friends is by living in halls of residence. And number 5, 24/7 support. So I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but when you come and live with us, it's not that we just give you the key and that's it, you're on your own. There's loads and loads of support available to you through Sheffield Hallam when you live with us. Some of it's been mentioned in the previous slides, but I'll talk a little bit about the student support available when you're living in halls of residence a little bit later. Right, okay, so choosing the right hall for you. This is just something that we tell people to consider when it comes down to looking at accommodation. So this doesn't necessarily need to apply specifically to halls of residence, and it doesn't even need to apply to Sheffield. It's if you're considering about somewhere to live while you're studying, these are the 4 points that we think are key and things that you need to consider. Size is a really important one, and it really just does come down to you as an individual. Would you like somewhere with loads and loads of people, really, really hustly and bustly, things going on all the time? Or would you prefer somewhere slightly quieter, slightly more peaceful that you can come back to at the end of the day and study and relax in? Again, there's no right or wrong answer there. It really is just what you would prefer. The best way of gauging that is to go and view, which you can do by speaking with us. I'll give you our contact info at the end of this. But size is definitely one to consider. In the same vein as that, there's also facilities. So our halls of residence and private sector housing, if you're looking at that, will offer a range of different facilities. And that does link up with how much things cost. So some of our halls are really modern, all singing, all dancing. They have gyms, they have cinema rooms, they have karaoke rooms, private dining rooms, all the sort of the mod cons you might think of. And if that's something that you think is really important, then and something that will really enhance your university experience, then by all means. But we do say to people, is that something that really is important to you? And if it isn't, maybe you'll save yourself some money, save yourself some budgeting if you choose somewhere maybe with not all of those facilities, but somewhere that's going to be suitable for you, but maybe not as expensive, which touches on the 4th point there, price. So price is very important. Student funding have mentioned about how much you may receive for your maintenance loan or other awards or benefits, and it's definitely something to consider when you're making a choice about accommodation, because you will be signing a tenancy agreement, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But it's just worth bearing in mind that once you've signed that, you are legally binding yourself to pay for it. So making sure that you're comfortable with the property and comfortable with how much it's going to cost is really, really important, and something that we always say to people: make sure that you've weighed up your options and weighed up how much money you're going to receive before you make that ultimate decision. And then location. So I've already spoken about location really, but all of our halls of residence are very much city centre based and walkable. If you're looking at private sector housing or house share or renting privately, this is something we can also advise on, but bear in mind location and things like that when you are looking, and that you're comfortable with how far away you're going to be from university or public transport networks or whatever it might be. Again, before you make that decision, just because it can have an impact when it comes to your experience here at Sheffield Hallam. So talking about money, here's a little bit about the facts on money from an accommodation point of view. All of our prices are on our website, which I'll give you at the end of this this presentation. They've just been updated for September this year, so they are up to date now, and they are reflective of what you'd be paying should you move in September. We try and make sure that we have a broadest price range as possible, really. So something to suit all budgets. The cheapest we have at the moment is around £85 a week, and that goes up to about £145, £150 a week, with everything sort of in between that bracket. We try and make sure that our accommodation is affordable. If you've been looking at other universities, you might notice that Sheffield is a very, very affordable city to live in compared to the likes of Nottingham, Leeds, Manchester. Our halls of residence really are very good value. But I'd recommend that you pop on our website and have a look at the detailed pricing breakdowns there if you want to get a good idea of how much halls cost, and private sector as well. I mentioned insurance earlier in the presentation, and it's something that we do include when you book through us. So if you book through Sheffield Hallam, we include £2,000 worth of insurance cover in your room for free. So it's something that just gets automatically added on to your room. It's not something you have to do anything about. It's just there, provided for, which is really handy. It's something that's not always at the forefront of everyone's mind when they're applying for university and they've got loads of different things going on. But it is important. And if you apply through us, you get that £2,000 worth of cover for free. If you want any more information on that, I'm happy to send it over. We have an online insurance flyer that we can provide. But yeah, something to bear in mind. We offer insurance for free when you choose us. Deposits and pre-arrival payments. So these days it's a bit of a mix about deposits and pre-arrival payments. A lot of our halls have scrapped deposits now, so there's no money to pay up front. I'd say about 50% of our halls don't take a deposit, 50% do. It's something to consider because you will be asked to pay if you've chosen a hall that takes a deposit, you will be asked to pay an amount of money up front. It ranges between about £150 and £300, and it's for covering breakages or damage or things like that. All being well, at the end of the tenancy, it just gets refunded to you. Or if it's a pre-arrival payment, they just knock it off the final rent bill instead. Something to bear in mind if that's an issue before maybe you've received your student loan. If a deposit is a problem, by all means get in touch with us and we can advise them what the options would be for accommodations that don't take deposits, and we can talk you through what might be the best option there. And then talking on when to pay, this ties in quite nicely with the student funding presentation. Traditionally, it's always paid termly. So with our halls of residence, when you move in, you get a 3-payment plan that's once a term. So it'll be once in October, once again in January, and once again in April. And this is supposed to marry up with when you get your maintenance loan paid. So you'll apply for your student finance, you'll get your means tested amount of money confirmed. That'll be paid into your bank account. And then should you choose, you can use that to pay your rent. That's how we tend to split it up. If that's an issue, or you'd like to discuss other ways of paying in terms of how frequently that is, come and speak to us separately, and we can talk you through what options that might be. But as standard, it's once a term is when you pay your rent. So talking about contracts, this is a really important slide and one that we try and emphasize when we do this presentation. Tenancy agreements are 43 and 44 weeks long. So that usually runs from September through to the following July, so a full academic year. This year, the moving in date will be the 17th, I believe, of September, 16th and 17th over that weekend. And once you've moved in, that room is yours for that full 44-week period. That includes any holidays, so Easter, Christmas, reading weeks. You don't have to move out during any of those periods. The room is entirely yours to do what you wish with during that time. You can also leave your things there, whatever it is. The key's yours, that room is yours for that full period. One thing to bear in mind is that when you do sign a tenancy agreement, when you've decided on where you want to live, it is a legally binding agreement, and that's halls of residence. And if you're looking in private sector as well, not just student accommodation, the general rental market too. They are legally binding agreements, so you are agreeing to cover the rent for the full term. It's just something to consider when it comes to being sure about your course, being sure about Sheffield as a city, making sure that your funding's in place. It's just something to bear in mind and be aware of when you are doing that, because you don't want to be in a situation maybe where you've changed your mind, or you're not sure about where you're living, and you're in a legally binding tenancy agreement. If that happens, there is support available, and you can come and speak to us if that's the case. But it's just something to bear in mind when you come to make that final decision, really. So a little bit about applying for accommodation now. You can apply for accommodation as soon as you receive your course offer from Hallam. So I'm guessing a lot of you will have applied on UCAS Hub, and you'll either have had an offer already, you're waiting on maybe an interview or something like that. But once you've got your course offer, you can apply for accommodation. You don't have to have got on the course yet. If you've got a conditional offer, so you're waiting on grades, that's absolutely fine. You'd have been given a student ID number, and you use that to apply for your accommodation. It's all done online. So on our website, the main website that you may be familiar with, if you click on the accommodation section there, there's a huge button that says apply, and you just follow the steps. It takes about 10 minutes to do, not very long. You make 4 different accommodation choices, just so we've got something to work with in terms of what might be suitable for you. And then, yeah, that's essentially it. What we do is we offer accommodation when you become unconditional firm on UCAS. So you've achieved what's required to get onto the course, and Hallam is firm choice on UCAS. Once we know those 2 things, we can then offer the accommodation to you. So you can apply, as I say, as soon as you've got the course offer, and then we'll offer it once you're unconditional firm. We'll send the offer to you via email. All paperwork and things is all online now. There's no paper-based forms or post or anything to worry about. It's all completely signed online. But you receive an email with your accommodation offer. If you're happy with it, you can accept it, and then that'll take you through to the booking stage where you sign your tenancy and everything like that. So unfortunately, there's nothing open today, obviously, because we're on Zoom. If you do, however, want to view anything, or you go on our website and you see something you might be interested in, please get in touch with us, and we can arrange a time to suit you to go and look at any of our halls of residence. We always sort of say it's really is the best way of getting a gauge of if you're going to be comfortable with the properties to go and view it. So if you go on our website, you have a look at the videos, the 360 tours and things, and you've got a few in mind, get in touch with us, and we'll organise for you to go and see them in person as well, should you wish. So, as well as halls of residence, I will touch briefly on private sector accommodation as well. So this is accommodation not booked through the university, but I know that's something that a lot of people are interested in. So I will talk a little bit about that as well. It's popular with returning students, but we're finding that any year of study, private sector accommodation is definitely an option that can be suitable and desirable for you. Popular with returning students, as I say. We have our own private sector listings page on our accommodation website. So you'll see next to the applications for halls, there'll be a separate private sector section. And that's where approved private landlords can advertise their student halls of residence, student houses, apartments, flats, things like that. They're all very much separate from the university and run by private landlords, hence private sector. But they have to be accredited by something called the SNUG scheme if they want to advertise through the university. So the SNUG scheme is something that we run with the other universities, so University of Sheffield and Sheffield City Council. And it's a quality inspection scheme. So if a landlord wants to become SNUG, they have to go through an inspection. They have to have their tenancy looked at, and the council also check that they're fit and proper as a manager and as a landlord. Once they've passed all that, they then get a certificate, and then they can come to us if they want to advertise. So you know that if you're looking on our private sector section of our website for private sector housing, that you're going to be choosing a landlord that is approved and that is above board, and you're going to be getting a property that we feel is of a standard suitable for our students. Definitely something to bear in mind if you are looking at private sector housing. It can be a bit intimidating at all the different options and making sure you make the right choice. What we'd also say again is if you're doing your own house hunting and you need any advice, again, come and speak to us, and we can talk you through what might be the best options for you. or if you've got a tenancy agreement or a question about a specific flat, house, or whatever it might be, come and speak to us and we can advise you. We do run a housing fair once a year. It's usually every November in partnership with the Sheffield Students' Union. And again, that's where a lot of private sector landlords come to advertise their properties. They all have to be in the snug scheme too to be at that event. But yeah, I think the takeaway really is, if you are making your own choices or your own sort of inquiries into private sector accommodation, please feel free to come and speak to us about it if you're unsure of anything. So I mentioned this briefly earlier, but when you live with us, or while you're living away in Sheffield, there is an awful lot of help and support available. It's really not that you're on your own in your house with your room key. First point of call, whether you're in private sector or halls of residence, would be us at Accommodation Services. We're the sort of go-to for anything accommodation related. We can advise on tenancy agreements, if you're having maintenance issues with anything it might be, or you need some guidance for looking for a flat or house for next year or for over the summer, or whatever it might be, we're the first point of call. On a similar note, we also have a residential support coordinator who works in our student support team. His name's Lee, and he deals with any sort of pastoral care relating to accommodation or student housing. So it could be to do with mental health, finance, funding, not getting on with your flatmates, support with course things, whatever it might be. He's the go-to person to speak with regarding that, and has a lot of ins with other departments in student support, so can refer you on if needed, or advise himself. Site teams and residential support crews. So these people are actually on site in the hall of residence that you choose. So there's usually a hall manager, there's usually some customer service staff as well, and security of an evening. So you can have that peace of mind that there's somebody there 24/7 to help you out if you need, if you have any problems or you need anything urgently, there's somebody there on site as well. On a wider note, we also have student support. So student and academic services. That team covers all wide range of student support services on offer at Hallam. Some of them they've already presented here today. So anything to do with funding, disability help, anything to do with mental health, anything to do with fees and funding, whatever it might be. There is a lot of help there with your student support advisor too. When you come with us, you get assigned a named contact in student support that you can contact anytime, who can advise best on who to speak to if you're having any sort of issues. And then on a separate note, we also have the Hallam Union Advice Centre. They are slightly separate from the university, but they offer any sort of help and advice on a wide range of issues, but especially with housing, they have a dedicated housing advisor. So if you have any housing related issues or housing related questions, they're also really good to speak to, and slightly separate and more impartial from the university. So somebody to consider as well. So yeah, that's it from me. I appreciate that's a lot of information quite quickly. So that's our contact info there. So please feel free to drop us an email or give us a call if you do have any further questions. But yeah, thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Dom. That was really comprehensive and thorough. We didn't have many questions specifically for you to follow up with. There was just one point that was made, and I wondered if you'd got any kind of thoughts from your line of work and personal circumstances. So just wondered if there was any advice for having a shared kitchen with an allergy. So we'd noted in our response to make your flatmates aware of your circumstances, maybe have separate utensils and label things up. But just wondered if you'd got any additional thoughts to add to that.
Yeah, so it's something that we have had in the past, and Lee, who I mentioned earlier, residential support coordinator, does have some experience with that too. What I'd recommend is if you drop us an email, if you're going to apply with us, let us know what kind of circumstances it would be, and we can have a look at what the best advice would be. Essentially, the main one is to make all your flatmates aware of what it might be that you're allergic to, how you handle food, how they handle food. In some circumstances, a fridge within your room is something that can be looked at. It's not something we can guarantee, but if somebody's got especially severe allergy and they would rather keep their foods very separate, that's something we can look at as well. But again, it's very much a case of making the flatmates aware. What we can do is if whoever asked that question would like to get in touch with us, we can certainly look into it a little bit more detail if you like.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And I just, I seem to remember that there used to be like different Facebook groups or online chats of like halls of residence that people would join in advance. Is that a thing anymore?
Yes, so we tend to let the hall management do them themselves now rather than the university doing. We used to have one for each hall that we would sort of administer, but we found that there was a bit of confusion between the one that the management team who manage the site do and what we do. So yes, there's lots of WhatsApp groups I think now that also get created. So that's another nice way of maybe connecting with people who you might be living with before you actually arrive.
Great. Thank you so much.
No worries.
I think that brings us to the end of our, of our session today. So thank you for everyone that's been able to attend, and obviously for anyone watching this back. I hope that was useful. If you've got any follow-up questions, obviously there's a few things that we've highlighted that we've said we will follow up with. And share kind of details in the members area and our kind of follow-up comms to you. I'm just going to make it so you can see all of us, bear with. There you go. Trying to do two things at once and then just not doing either very well. So we'll follow up stuff via email. We'll send you details to this recording, and we, as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll hopefully look to create some sort of in-person informal event where you can maybe look around the campus and get to speak to additional people that haven't been able to kind of work in this forum. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. Hope you found it useful. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and if you get time to play in the snow, hopefully that's fun too. Thank you.